Hi everybody, I'm Lorna King from Women Who Want More, and today I'm joined with Tilda Timmers, and she's here to talk about her new book, This is Postpartum. So hi Tilda, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Great, thank you. So I am so happy to have you here. This is such an important
Thank
topic,
you.
and I think you're fantastically brave for going out there and making this happen. So tell me a little bit about how this all came to be.
Well, it's a long story. I wrote the Dutch book before because I'm a Dutch. I live in the Netherlands, and I'm a mom of two. My oldest one is Livia. She's 6, and my youngest is Emmy. She's 2.5. And my husband's name is Tim. We live in the Netherlands, and I went through postpartum depression after my first, and I was thinking like, why isn't anybody talking about this? Like, I felt really alone, and I felt like I was the only mom out there who was lacking the mom gene completely, and I just felt so isolated. And when I started talking about it, I would hear stuff like, oh, my mom went through that, or my sister had it, or my friend went through the same. And I was like, really? Wow. So I'm not the only person who's going through this. And then I started talking to a therapist, and she also told me that there are a lot of moms who go through it. And so that made me feel better. And I think after a year, I was recovered completely.
And did,
And
and did you know that it was depression? Because a lot of people tend to put these things down to hormones, and it's normal.
right.
You're supposed to be tired. So what was it that really made you sort of reach out and get therapy around this?
She diagnosed me with postpartum depression, and then she gave me some reading materials and books about the subject. And when I read it, I realized that I had a depression, but I also realized that I had a depression before, but
Mm.
then I wasn't diagnosed. So I was like, oh, I already went through this once. So yeah, it was really interesting for me. And I think, the therapy and the talking about it really helped me. And then I was just, recovering and feeling better. And I was like, what do I want to do with my life? And I didn't want to go back to my old job, but I always loved talking to people. And my maternity nurse said something really sweet, like, oh, Tilda, your friends coming by, they tell you all their problems, and you give them the best advice, and you should really do something with that. And that comfort that lingered. And after a while, I decided, like, hey, I just want to help other moms who go through this PPD situation, and like I was being helped. And yeah, then I decided to retrain myself, become a therapist, and yeah, and writing my
Wow.
book, of course. Yeah,
So you
yeah.
became a therapist after all of this. That's incredible.
After all of that, yeah.
Wow. So, gosh, you said that you read some materials around postpartum depression. What was it that, or what did you see as the gap in the market that needed to be filled?
I think I read a lot about intrusions. I had like really intrusive thoughts. Like, for example, I was walking with my baby in the pram over a bridge, and then I was like, oh, if I let go of the pram now, she will be dead. And then I would be like, oh, why am I thinking this? Like, I must be the worst mom in the world. And I was mortified, and I didn't want to talk about this because I was sure they would take my baby away from me if I would tell this.
I'm curious about that actually because I have a 6-month-old daughter, and we discussed a little bit before this. I suffer from prenatal depression, and I consider myself now more mentally healthy than I have been in a long time because, like you,
Good.
I recognize some of the symptoms actually happened in my first pregnancy. I just wasn't diagnosed. At least this time I got the medications that I needed, which thankfully there are options when you're pregnant that are very safe, combined with therapy. And as a result, I'm feeling great now. But the thing you just mentioned about the intrusive thoughts, I still have those. So now I'm a bit curious because you're walking along and your baby does seem so fragile. And you think, what if I just trip now? What if and then it's
Yeah.
horrible. So is that something that points to mental instability, or is that something that we can expect as mothers with this fragile being in our hands?
I think everybody has intrusive thoughts. For example, if you're waiting for the train or the subway and it, comes into the station, you're thinking like in a blink of an eye, like, should I jump in front of it? You never
Yeah.
do it. You think that. Yeah. Even my
Yeah, you're
husband.
like, I'm not suicidal. Why would I think that? But you do.
Yeah, I talked to him about it. He was like, yeah, I have them as well. And
Okay.
I think what if you already had them, like same with depressive thoughts or having anxiety, once you become a mom or once you become pregnant, it becomes magnified, you know. And this
Okay.
is what I see in my practice, that a lot of moms are really putting it under a magnifying glass and are thinking about all the little details and all the little thoughts they have on a day, and then it becomes a really big thing.
Mm.
And before you know it, you end up in a snowball effect where you can hardly escape from.
Yeah. So what point do people need to reach out to help? And I mean, and what sort of help should they be reaching out for? As we said before, you know, often you confide in, you know, the women in your life, your friends, your mother, your, you know, your partner, and a lot of people will say, you know, I went through this is normal.
Yeah.
How do you know when to go for help, like real help?
I would say as early on as possible, because then you can really prevent the complete spiral from going really, really down. But of course, also when you're suicidal or having suicidal thoughts, I had those as well, and I remember like thinking that and remembering thinking like I really need to talk to somebody about this because this is brutal. And not all moms who go through or have a baby go through postpartum depression, of course. There are also a lot of moms that have anxiety or just are really insecure or just don't know how to deal with all the responsibilities. I mean, there's so much going on. And I think as a society, we need to normalize these things, and that it's okay to feel really vulnerable and really insecure at times. And that 99% of mothers have no clue either. We just all just do something we think is right, but there's no right way to be a good mother. You know, there are a million ways of being a good mother. So
That's true,
yeah.
and that was a message that I got, especially when I was working through things before my second child. Is, you know, you just need to be a good enough mother. You don't have to be anything near a perfect mother, just
Exactly.
good enough. And that was really
Yeah.
reassuring to me.
You don't have
Because
to be perfect, like not at all. But it's
well,
hard.
it's possible if we think about it.
Yeah, exactly. If you look at social media and you look at all these Insta perfect moms, I mean, it's hard not to feel like a failure, right?
Yeah, and I think as well, you know, when you have that baby, it is a very vulnerable time, and the majority of moms will go through what we call the baby blues, and it's very important to differentiate that from postpartum depression, right? Because baby blues tends to resolve itself within a matter of, you know, weeks to a couple of months. If it extends longer than that, then that's when you really need to sort of pay attention to it, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, people can feel, oh, there's my child again. He's always an gate crashing. That's the older one. I know, that's the joys, isn't it? Yeah, anyway, so tell me a little bit more about the book itself then. You said you focus on things like intrusive thoughts that you weren't able to find information on before. What else does your book contain, and, you know, how can it help people who think they have a problem or just want a bit more awareness?
My book is for all new parents, like also for dads, but only for new parents who are just struggling or are feeling insecure or don't know how to do this thing called parenthood. You know, it's most people talk about moms going through postpartum depression, but it's also important to include the fathers, I think, because they don't have the big hormonal swing like the moms do, but they also need to adapt to the new situation and the new responsibilities. And I'm also writing as a couple, you know, how do you get through this? Like, how do you keep your relationship sane if you just had a baby? And I'm also talking about the first time of having sex and breastfeeding versus formula, and that there's no right way to do this as long as your choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that is the most important thing. Not to feel trapped into any circumstances, because there normally is a choice, right, of some description. And definitely when it comes to getting help. And the thing when it comes to therapy or psychiatry or anything like that, I always say to people, go and get it checked out. If you've got any concerns, you don't have to take that advice, you don't have to take that medication. But if you've got a niggle in doubt, it's worth speaking to somebody.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and also like my book, This is Postpartum, is also like it has a lot of sense of humor in it, which I find very important because it's a sensitive matter, but you also have to laugh, you know. And there's my favorite chapter, I think, is the things that nobody tells you, because that's really like out there, you know, talking about all the stuff that nobody wants to talk about because you need to know, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And when talking about like relief, one of my favorite comedies of recent times. Hello, Ezra. Hello. Hello. This is my eldest. He only wears pajamas now.
How are you?
We're talking about babies. What do you think about baby Rosie? You all right? That's not the first time. You know, whatever sort of boundaries are put up, it just
No, it's working from home in a pandemic, you know. Just roll with the punches.
Completely lost my train of thought now, but I'm curious about what your profession was before all of this, because you said you were done with.
Oh yeah, I worked at the gynecology and fertility department in the hospital. And the thing I really liked most about the job was talking to the patients about, you know, all they were going through. There are moms who had like 6, 10 miscarriages before they, you know, had a pregnancy that stayed, you know, and then talking about all the anxiety and the things they were going through and the hormones. And, you know, it's such an insecure and scary time for these moms. And
yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. And isn't pregnancy loss one of the sort of predisposing factors to postnatal depression as well, to make you higher risk once I think maybe IVF.
Yes, I see a lot of IVF moms in my practice. Yeah.
What advice would you give to the new mums then, in terms of identifying any potential issues and then how to sort of handle it? And bearing in mind, a lot of people won't turn towards therapists or psychiatric help, right? So what can people do for themselves?
Yeah, you need all the help you can get. And you know, they say it takes a village to raise a child, but in these days that's really hard. I kept thinking, like, should I just wait for this village to just knock on my door? I mean, where is my village? I had no idea. And I think it's also because our parents work, or you know, are far away, and all of our friends are busy as well, and same with the siblings. So it's hard to create that village, you know. A lot of that is on you as a mom.
Yeah, and that's particularly true here in the UAE. You know, we're a large expat community, and it can be hard, especially if a lot of people move here, you know, with young children or have the babies here and they haven't managed to establish themselves yet. So that can be particularly tricky.
I can really imagine, yeah.
There was one thing I was thinking about that you were mentioning before in terms of actually getting this book published. You said that a lot of people didn't feel ready to publish a book on this topic. What was the sort of reaction you were getting from that market?
Oh, so many. Well, I think I was rejected like 60 times. They told me like postpartum depression doesn't sell. It's a taboo subject. You know, I think they just wanted to know for sure that my book was going to be a bestseller, and I think it will be. But you know, all these other publishers were like really hesitant because this subject of the postpartum depression and the postpartum period in life, you know, it is really a taboo subject, where I think, well, that's exactly the reason why somebody should write about it and, you know, put it out there.
It almost seems like a social responsibility. I mean, beyond, I know these places often operate as businesses, but if that can, you know, save the life of, you know, mothers or children and really improve the quality of living, then it's a job well done. So tell me about the eventual publisher that decided that this was a goer.
Yeah, so that's the Dream Work Collective in Dubai. Kira Jean, my publisher, is amazing. She and Talia, my editor, believed in my book right away. And I remember getting their email, and it was from Talia, my editor, and she said something like, "Oh, Tilda, I am so in love with your book, and I really want to publish it." And I was just reading it, and I closed up my phone. I set my phone on the couch. I said to my husband, I have an email, and he's like, "So what kind of email?" And I was like, "I can't read it, it's too much."
I can imagine after so many no's, that must have been like an unbelievable moment.
Unbelievable moment, yeah. And then we just read it together, and then we just hugged each other, and you know, we were so excited. Yeah.
That's beautiful, and it's so nice that you're doing it in an area that, you know, like say, isn't spoken about enough and is so important. Hopefully it will be incredibly impactful for a lot of people.
Yeah, I really hope. my mission is to help as many mothers and fathers as I can, and I think with this book I can reach, you know, millions of them, and that's my intention. You know,
Yeah,
it's so hard to go through this, and it's also hard when you don't have PPD and just become a new mom.
it's true.
Like when you're an expat, like we lived in Cape Town and in Boston twice when Livia was 1 and 2 years old. And
Mm.
I felt also very alone because I didn't have any friends there. I didn't know anybody. And then when you become a mom in a certain situation, that's even harder. So my book is not only for women who go through PPD, but also who just struggle with motherhood and, you know, the new role they have to adapt to and all the new things you have to learn about your baby.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that really surprised me actually is how hard it is to actually recover from being pregnant itself. I think I've had two experiences. I had an emergency C-section and then I had a VBAC, and I mean, regardless of the way you deliver, like the recovery, your body going back, the night sweats, the milk coming in, and there's so many things that you're so busy worrying about this new baby coming into the world. Mastitis isn't something that even crosses your mind until after it happens, and you're like, ouch, this is not a good time. So it's good to be prepared for what happens to you as well as that little person.
Yeah.
If people want to buy your book, where is it available? Where can we go?
You can click the pre-order link on my Instagram, or go to Amazon.com and do the pre-order there. It's on Amazon, and yeah, it's incredibly important that we just spread the message to all the new moms, like, hey, my book is out there. If you're feeling insecure as a new mom or as a pregnant woman, just read it, and I think it will really help.
Yeah, and you said it's got a touch of humor on it as well, so maybe it's a great thing to gift someone. You know, a lot of people don't even know they need this information, right? So
yeah, exactly. Especially with it's now Maternity Mental Health Week and Mother's Day is coming up, so yeah, it's a good idea actually. Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to leave us with a closing thought? What's the one message you want to leave for all the new parents or upcoming new parents out there?
My message would be like, even though on a daily basis you think you are not good enough as a mom or as a dad, you are good enough, and trust the process. And in the end, it will all be okay.
That's beautiful. What a message of hope, and a lot of people would be so happy to hear that. And thank you so much. It's really nice to hear it coming from an expert as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
No worries. It's absolute pleasure. Thank you for reaching out. It's, like I say, it's such an important topic, and I'm glad people are talking about it more. Thank you.